Well, hello there, friend. Welcome to the Construction Leadership Podcast, where we help construction executives lead high-performing teams, finish on time and under budget, without all the firefighting and babysitting, so you can lead with focus and control. I am your host, Bradley Hartman. Now, on today's episode, you will discover some disconcerting new research about the engagement of managers in the workforce today. That could certainly be related to a general lack of accountability and a misunderstanding between leadership and management. You will also be able to download a tool that we have successfully used and deployed in hundreds of firms in the construction industry to ensure mid-managers and the people they employ are engaged and communicating consistently. So you'll be able to download that in our show notes after this episode. Now, as we see more layoffs in construction and the broader business environment in general, this discussion about engagement and communication and trust building between leaders and managers is absolutely critical. So, my friend, let's dive in. As always, thank you for listening. Now, at the end of July, a client of mine forwarded on an article by Ray A. Smith of the Wall Street Journal titled, "Why Are Managers So Miserable at Work?" And the subhead is, only 27% of managers globally say they feel involved and enthusiastic about their work, based on a recent study by Gallup. This article then features a researcher from Gallup to explain why. Now, in one of the early paragraphs, it reads, the percentage of employees who say they feel engaged, that is, involved and enthusiastic about their work, fell to 21% last year from 23% the year before. It was only the second time global employee engagement has declined in the 15 years Gallup has tracked it. The last time was in, you got it, was 2020 during COVID-19 lockdowns. And they go on to say this was particularly pronounced among managers. Only about 1 in 4 managers reported feeling engaged at work, which is a drop of 3 points from the year before, with younger managers and female managers experiencing big declines. Now, in general, when I think about engagement and the 3 states of engagement, I go to a sporting metaphor, as I seem to always do. However, I go to rowing. And when I think about those people that are engaged, they are in the boat and they are rowing in lockstep. We are in unison and we're all rowing in the same direction. Then you have some people that aren't really engaged. They're kind of there. They're just kind of along for the ride, and they have their 2 oars positioned above the water. So they're just kind of going along for the ride, and they're going to see what happens. And then you have another group of people that are also rowing. They're putting their oars in the water. They're leaning their back into it, and they're doing the effort. But the problem is they are rowing in the opposite direction as everyone else. This is the general framework that I think about. And as I'm meeting new employees who will be instrumental in part of the projects we're involved in with clients, I'm trying to figure out, are they helping us row the boat faster in the same direction? Are they just hanging out, or are they rowing against us? And I'm trying to put them in those buckets. And specifically with my client, we got on the phone and we talked through this and we tried to diagnose which key players that we were focused on. And what we were trying to do was to figure out how we could implement this change faster. In light of the data that was in this article, how was it relevant to the job that we were doing? So we had a 30-minute Zoom call, and then the end of the day came, and I was at home and I was watching the new documentary on the Dallas Cowboys. You may have seen it or heard of it. It's called America's Team, The Gambler and His Cowboys. And I got into the second episode when this clip came on and hit me like a punch to the face.
Everybody up here, real quick. I want a tough practice, a hard practice. We're going to knock some heads.
So how would you describe training camp?
The way we practice, you can't do today.
What the hell have you been doing? You ain't broke the sweat all damn day. You jumped your ass down the field. Let the mind control the body. Got the body control the mind.
We got a lot of young young players from the Herschel trade. And my philosophy was, you got to push the players beyond their limits. So how do you do that? It might be respect. It might be fear.
Hold on that damn football! Get out of here! I want him out!
JJ's already losing some of his players. One player says, he treats us like 17-year-olds. I have no respect for him.
They're not in the shape that I want in.
Measuring test to see if you are in condition is 16-1-10. You run a mile, you sprint a mile to show you're ready to play.
I was on my 6th or 7th or 8th one, and I saw this kid on the ground, just couldn't breathe. Jimmy comes and, what the is wrong?
Part of this group. Asthma, my ass. Get over there on that other field and have some asthma. Wrong field to have asthma. I lied my ass. Get out of here.
Jimmy was a complete hole.
Oh, rookie running back was cut on the spot today.
I've got asthma. I want the job done.
But I laugh at what other people call hard work.
Michael Irvin was seen putting out a workout clinics today.
There were some older guys that played for Landry. And I told Coach, here's a list. These must go.
Jeff Rohr received the news about being cut early in the day.
Like there is a presidential line, Michael had a straight line to the person that was making the decisions.
There are people here worried about being cut. I'm not so much worried about being cut.
We need to quicken this, because we got to get somewhere.
And Aikman hands the ball up to Emmitt Smith for no yards.
And then virtually no offense, total ineptitude on offense.
And the Cowboys lose today.
Now, what stood out to me about this clip were two things. Number one was Jimmy Johnson saying he's trying to figure out how to motivate every single person on that team. Is that with respect or is it fear? And then you have Michael Irvin. Now, Michael Irvin won a national championship at the University of Miami with Jimmy Johnson. Then Michael Irvin goes to the pros, gets drafted by the Cowboys, and then here comes Jimmy Johnson. They have an understanding. They have a relationship. They have the same set of expectations and the same set of standards about how they should run a team and can achieve success. And what Michael Irvin says, hey man, I've got here, Jimmy, I've got the list. These people must go. Why? Because they're not engaged, they're not committed. And the line that I love is, we need to quicken this up because we got to get somewhere. And what he meant was, first of all, we had to start winning, developing a winning culture. And then we needed to go on and win the Super Bowl. We got some place to go. Jimmy and Michael Irvin had the vision. It was very clear. We need to get from here now, one of the worst teams of football, to the Super Bowl as fast as possible. Inside any team or business, people already know who's engaged and who isn't. This is hardly a secret. The real challenge is getting leaders to get out from behind their desks to confront this and make some tough decisions. So when we think about overall employees at 21%, like 1 out of 5, managers, 27%, only 1 out of 4 are engaged. Can you imagine running a football team where only 1 out of 5 players are actually engaged? So what's changed? Well, one of their findings is that managers now oversee 3 times as many people as they did in 2017. Now, while this research here is for all industry, I can confirm for the construction industry, this past week we held 2 different meetings of the sales manager peer advisory group, where we get some managers to come together. They're all non-competing, and we're talking about the challenges that they face, holding people accountable, inspiring people, delivering bad news, coaching them up, all the challenges that managers face. And when we went around to introduce ourselves, I asked each manager to state the number of employees that they had that were direct reports. And the numbers range anywhere from 8 or 9, which I thought was fantastic. I think that's probably pretty close to the right number. We had a few folks that were like 12 to 15. Seems like it's getting harder. And then we had probably 80% of the managers on these 2 different calls were somewhere between 20 and 50. And the question is, during a given month, with all the things that you have going on, with customers, with managing executives and everything else, how are you developing trust, coaching people, holding them accountable when you have between 20 and 50 direct reports? It's damn near impossible. And as we're having more layoffs and restructurings, we are further shrinking this middle management, leaving those left with even more people. And the result is less time for relationships, less time for feedback, less time for engagement, which means more disengagement for everybody. We often talk about this being a relationship business, but we often forget these relationships are critical inside our business if we want to deliver well to our customers. But again, think back to Michael Irvin. It's not a secret. Your team knows who's giving max effort and who isn't. But if managers are stretched way too thin, they can't build trust and that closeness that is required to really be vulnerable, the essence of strong teams, candor and vulnerability and trusting one another to do their job, you can't build that. You got to get below the surface. And almost every company we work with is grappling with two things that are big changes, which is number one, work from home. How do we do that? How do we connect with people? How do we hold them accountable? What happens when we're not in person in an industry where we are so commonly doing stuff together on the job? What about all the other people that aren't actually doing the work, but aren't around the office every single day? That's one, work from home. The other one is AI. Everyone should be thinking about how AI is impacting or can impact the work that we do or the work that's being done from people that work around us. And one of these question and answers from the article jumped out to me. The question was, engagement among young managers fell 5 percentage points. Is not being in the office as much as previous generations playing a role in that? And the answer from a man named Jim Harder was, well, globally, only 37% of young managers have received any training compared with 44% of managers overall. Let me read this again. Globally, only 37% of young managers have received any training compared with 44% of managers overall. So that means 63% of young managers have never received training for the work that they're doing, and 56%, more than half, have never received training. You've been around, you have tenure, we like you, congrats on the promotion, go get her done. Another question and answer that really stood out was, what is the one thing managers can do that would make the biggest difference in their own engagement? And Harder said, I would say the cadence with which they have meaningful conversations with the people that they manage. Some managers go into the job thinking that if they talk to the people they manage once a quarter, that they're doing enough. But things are changing very quickly in organizations. Managers need to be in touch with their people on a regular basis, involving them rather than just delegating to them and noticing what people are doing right. Now, I struggle to read this in something like a Wall Street Journal article. This seems like absolute common sense that, yeah, you got to talk to your people. That is the role of a manager and a leader, to understand how are they doing, to coach them up, to hold them accountable. But what we have realized, it's often a tool that is missing. There isn't a tool plus training that's been given to young managers to say, here's a structured, predictable, repeatable way that you can engage with your colleagues, the people who report to you, on a consistent basis. And if you're a younger talent and your manager never communicates with you, here's a method and a tool that you can present as a way to increase communication. So this is part of our GAP model, GAPP. G stands for goals, A stands for activity and output. The first P is the personal plan of accountability, and the second P is a performance review. We're going to allow you to download this tool that is a way to have a structured meeting to ask some important questions to see how people are feeling about the work that they're doing. And if you have these conversations and you can document some of this, it is going to be very obvious whether or not they are engaged month over month. So the first part of this tool is a rating system that goes from 1 to 7, 1 being false, 7 to being true, and number 5 is not available. We restrict that because people tend to put a lot of 5s in there. And I want you to either say, this individual who reports to me is average. They are a 4. They are right in the middle. Or I want you to say, this is a strength. People just end up with a ton of 5s, so we don't allow that at all. And then the manager will rate along this criteria the employee who works for them. And then the employee will do the same thing for themselves. And the goal is to see, are there any gaps between what the manager sees and what the employee sees? And the questions here are all about general work habits. So the first question is, this team member is proactive. This team member is self-motivated, hardworking, detail-oriented. exhibits good time management skills, exhibits strong communication skills, good follow through, responsive, they're a good teammate, they have a positive attitude. So I would run through these questions if I'm the manager thinking about my employee, and the employee would rate themselves. So that is the first step. Do we have any gaps between what the manager sees and what the rep sees? And then on the same scale, I'm going to have the employee fill out, again, 1 through 7. 1 is false, 7 is true, no 5s. I want them to document the answers to these questions. I feel safe working here. I feel I am part of the team. I feel this team has high standards. I feel this team helps me reach those standards. I feel I have a bright future with this team. For any of you that have read The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle, we took those directly from that, and it's been extremely helpful. The other questions are, I feel appropriately recognized for my contribution. I feel my training and development needs are discussed regularly. I feel satisfied with the frequency of communication with you. I feel satisfied with the frequency of feedback on my performance, and I feel our team lives up to our espoused core values. So again, I'm going to make this available to you. You can change them all you want. We cobbled them together from a whole bunch of different assets, but ultimately you can see the goal is to have a candid conversation about how the manager and their employee feels about working together on the mission that they're on. And then the last bit of questioning is really from the perspective of the employee. And there's questions like, where do you see opportunities we do not exploit? Where do you see dangers to which we are all still blind? The manager will ask, what do I do that wastes your time without contributing to your effectiveness? And then there's some questions about, what do you enjoy doing most? What skill would you like to develop? And then what would you like to do in 1 year, in 3 years? And what have we not talked about? In this meeting with some pre-work, both sides come together having thought this through, should be completed in 30 minutes or so. This does not have to be some giant bureaucratic mess. It's really just talking about feelings we have for ourselves, our team, and understanding how my manager or employee feels about the work that we are doing together. So if you go to our show notes, you will be able to download the full GAP model. You can read through that. The last 3 pages are the ones that I've presented here. The last thing I will mention, and this happens more often than most, when we see a lack of engagement, and in some cases, people who are rowing the wrong way, and we present this information to the owner or the president or the CEO, just like Michael Irvin, they know. However, they got a bleeding heart and they don't want to let anyone go. They choose them over the rest of the group. And they realize that the attitude isn't there. The effort isn't there. The engagement isn't there. And that affects the culture for everyone. But the owner's got a bleeding heart and cannot pull the trigger on making a change because, well, they're going to retire in 4 years. And as a consultant who's coming in from the outside, I just want to present the facts as well as I can and make sure what is not being said is said. And once it's said and once it is out there, that is up to these individuals who run the company to figure out the choices that they want to make. But for all the leaders and owners that are listening to this right now who have the capability to hire and fire people, this is a really tough decision for you to make, but that's what leadership requires. It requires courage and it demands change. And if you don't have people that are sticking their oars in the water, or they do, but they're rowing the wrong direction, it is your responsibility to make the hard call and make a change. And maybe that change is a development plan that is an if-then scenario. If we do not see these behaviors over this amount of time to achieve these results, we want to make it clear we will be moving on. And even if you are retiring in 4 years or 2 years or 6 months, the question that ultimately needs to be answered is one that Michael Irvin answered. He said, we need to quicken this up here because we got to get somewhere. The question for you as a leader is, where do you need to go and what changes are required? All right, then, friends, that's all I've got. I want to thank Ray A. Smith for his work on this article for the Wall Street Journal, and Jim Harder of Gallup, and all the fine folks who put together the documentary for America's Team, The Gambler and His Cowboys, which I would recommend to a friend. However, for someone who is living in Dallas and has my Cowboys as my backup favorite NFL team, it's extremely frustrating to watch, but it's pretty good. And to the extent you believe you would find it helpful, go to the show notes, download our gap model, and begin using that to increase engagement and candor and trust building within your team and your managers and everybody else. That is all I've got. We're going to close out with our leadership mantra. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.